Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 47 of Gondor Calls for Ale, a Middle-earth strategy battle games podcast. I am, of course, your host, Sam Gallagher, and with me, as always, is my brother Ben.
Hello, welcome, listeners, and perchance, Sam, some viewers too.
Yes, yes. Well, Ben, you've caught me unawares. That would have been the perfect time to reveal that, but I think for everyone at home and any new listeners or viewers joining us, we're gonna move into the best segment of Gondor Calls for Ale right away, so we can talk some more about more interesting things, perhaps. And that is, of course, Ben, what are you drinking this fine evening? Are you beer in hand?
I surely am, Sam. I surely am. I have gotten myself a Boromir's brown ale, and you may notice, Sam, my glass is particularly full because this comes in very large bottles. Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because they took the little ones.
God damn it! Oh, that's so good.
Well, Sam, what about you? What are you drinking for this first episode?
Oh, well, I'm sad I'm not having a Boromir's brown ale, that's for sure. But I'm having a Celebrimbor's craft beer, Ben. You know what's odd is that people think the rings of power were his greatest invention.
Not so, huh?
Not so. No, it was his craft beer that didn't quite roll off the tongue in
Well,
the same way that I was hoping for when I had it written down. But, it is what it is, and it is delicious.
well, if I manage to get through my mighty ale, Sam, I'll have to crack open a Celebrimbor's craft ale. Cheers.
Perfect. Cheers. Cheers indeed. Perfect. All right, man. Let's talk about this episode. I think we've got a few things to talk about, and because we've already mentioned it, I think the first and foremost and perhaps most important thing to talk about is that this is our first foray, our charge of the Brohirrim, perhaps, into YouTube, into some video content. So obviously, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're on YouTube. If you're listening to us, if you're one of our faithful listeners who have been listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts, we now are on YouTube where you can listen to us. It will be essentially the exact same episode, but we'll be including the pictures from our games and other stuff up on the screen, and you can see our beautiful smiling faces, which is, a plus maybe, a negative maybe. We'll let you decide that.
Yeah, indeed.
But I will also say we're excited to give this a go. It's something we've talked about doing for a while, and hopefully we do some other video content as well, which will be cool. But we are also going to continue releasing the episodes strictly as audio. There will be essentially the same from the videos. It's just we'll release them as audio, so you can still, if you prefer to listen rather than watch, that's fine, and you can keep doing that. You can
listening to us on your morning commute. Fear not, we are not going anywhere. We just might also have things on screen that we reference occasionally now, as we can both see this.
Yeah. And we're gonna make the attempt to describe what we're talking about. We're not just going to be like, oh yeah, and as you can see in this picture, this thing happened, because that's not that cool for people who are just strictly listening on audio. No. We wanna make the premier Lord of the Rings content for everyone, whether it's video or audio.
Continue to paint pictures with our words, Sam.
Yes. And as perhaps you all know, I am quite wordy and willing to chat.
Willing to waffle, Sam. Missed opportunity to alliterate.
So that's the deal. That's the new YouTube update there. Quite exciting, I suppose.
It is.
We're going to have to start being those people who are like, click like and subscribe. It really helps us with the algorithm. I don't know what any of that... Oh, ring the bell, right?
Ring the bell? Is that what they say? I don't know. I don't really YouTube.
I think you're supposed to ring the notification bell. I was thinking about that the other day, and I was like, there is 100% room for a reference to don't the bells of Dale get rung as Smaug arrives or something? I think there's a reference in there. We'll be back once we're more experienced with this format.
Right.
So we've talked about that for quite a while without talking about what this episode is actually going to be about, Ben. So do you want to let us know? Let us, the listener, the viewer, even let us know what we're talking about in this episode?
Yeah, so for this episode, we were going to be attending a doubles event. We were super excited for it. We were going to take the Grand Army of the South. You can see the Mumakil there behind me. It was going to be awesome. We were going to run people over with camels and a giant elephant, and we were going to have an absolute blast. Unfortunately, I was struck down by a terrible plague, and Sam and I did not make the event. So instead, we played a couple of games down in the basement. We played some scenarios from the Breaking of the Fellowship? No, the Quest of the Ringbearer.
Quest of the Ringbearer.
Quest of the Ringbearer, that's right. Played some scenarios from the Quest of the Ringbearer, and we're going to be talking a little bit about those, and we're going to be talking a little bit about competitive play versus friendly play, and sort of what that means and what that looks like. And very excitingly, I am super stoked for this, Sam. We are going to be unveiling our very own Tawny Bingo. Yes. That's right. We're bringing back the tournament bingo that we sort of used to do back in the day, but we're making it interactive this time so that you too can take a bingo sheet to tournament or tournaments near you and fill it out. And we are going to be giving away a prize, right, Sam?
Yeah. So I think we can talk about those details as we get.
Sorry, I got all excited. I'm very excited for Tawny Bingo.
The overall theme is that there will be things to do and potential fabulous prizes to be won. I think as well, for me, this episode is going to be a lot of talking about whether it's not necessarily casual versus competitive play, but it's just being a good sport and what's fun, whether it's in and how to make a game fun for your opponent, win or lose, competitive or otherwise. Because at this point, Ben and I have attended a fair number of tournaments.
Yeah.
And I have had games that are fantastic that I've been smashed in. I've had games that were terrible that I've won, and it's just like a whole spectrum. And coming off the back of winning Best Sportsman at a fabulous event, I feel I now have a pedestal or a soapbox to stand on where I can talk about this, and I think it is an interesting subject.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I want to dive right into, but because of our plans and how we're going through things, Ben, I think we can move in and should we talk about the tournament bingo that we're going to do first?
Sure, yeah, let's dive right into that.
All
Do you
right.
want to take it away,
so
Sam?
Moving into
you have crafted this beautiful tournament bingo sheet.
Yeah. So moving into the Gondor Calls for Ale tournament bingo, which we will go through square by square for all of you listening and all of you viewing. You can read them, but they will make zero sense to you because they've all got dumb names and they have specific things you have to do. So the idea of this and what we're doing is we're starting this a little bit early because we're going to be sort of running this across the Adepticon episode. So what we're going to do is, if you attend Adepticon, you've listened to the podcast, or you've seen it on social media or whatever, come and let us know. And the plan is we'll have a stack of these bingo cards. So come and let us know that you've listened to the episode and that you would like a Gondor Calls for Ale tournament bingo, or that we'll also make this available so you can print them for yourselves. So either you would like one or you have one printed. That's totally cool. If you've got one printed, you don't necessarily have to track us down at the beginning of the event. And then through the course of the event, so while we're attending Adepticon's Grand Tournament, over the course of the Adepticon Grand Tournament, if you complete the hobby bingo, we'll do a drawing for whoever's completed the bingo at the end of day 2, at the end of the final round, and we will have a cool prize, or perhaps more, which we have yet to decide on, for whoever completes it. I think it's going to be pretty cool, and we'll certainly try and let you know by the next episode we do, which will be 2 weeks, I think, before Adepticon starts. No, that can't be right. Maybe it's the day of Adepticon's release. Anyway, we'll try and let you know. Maybe we'll just make a post about it on our various social medias so you can see that it's a prize worthy of striving for.
Yeah, indeed. We talked about some cool stuff. So, tournament bingo.
All right, Ben. Do you wanna read us through the first square, the top square, and tell us what it means and how you can check off that square?
All right. So at the top square, we've got a 5x5. We've gone full American bingo here, Sam. None of this European 3x3 nonsense. We've gone full American bingo. Top square, number 1, we have for Frodo. This is an easy one here, a real gimme. Yell out a war cry as your army leader declares a charge. In other words, for Frodo or Grond, the Serpent Horde, whatever is
Yeah,
appropriate for your
something.
force, give it a cry as your leader charges into combat.
Yeah, yell it out, yell it out. We want the whole tournament hall to hear this.
Absolutely,
Actually,
absolutely.
before we move into the next squares, I mentioned that we're going to be giving them out and hoping to get people to attend at Adepticon. But I think the other thing we're going to do for certainly for this one, because we know we have international listeners or listeners who aren't going to be able to attend Adepticon, what we're going to do is we're going to have a prize for whoever completes it at Adepticon, or for a drawing for a prize for if multiple people complete it. If there's only one, you get it by default, right? But we're also going to do a time frame, which I think will be from when the Adepticon episodes released to which there will be 3 of them, to when the final one releases. If you take it to an event or multiple events in that time frame, get a check off, like get a bingo, check it all off, and send us a picture of it. We will do a drawing and then we'll mail somebody else a prize. So it gives other people a chance to participate because, of course, the goal is to subvert every competitive tournament and make it silly and for fun. Because that's what this episode is about. That's what we're about,
Yeah.
is making everything fun and less competitive. So a lot of these things in these bingos are dumb things like yelling, "For Frodo!" when Aragorn charges, or "I'll have you, Longshanks," whatever it may be. When you charge, do yell out something, have everyone's like, "Oh man, that guy's having a great old time." So that's the plan for the bingo period, is to kind of make things fun and enjoyable and silly, because we're, at the end of the day, mostly all adults, mostly playing with toys.
So the period, I think, for anyone who's not able to make Adepticon and wants to do tournament bingo is from the date that this episode releases till the end of the final Adepticon episode. So we're going to release 3 episodes about Adepticon, which will, of course, be Grand Tournament Part 1, Grand Tournament Part 2, and the doubles. And by the end of the 3rd one of those, I'm not 100% sure, Sam, what order we're releasing in those in, but at the end of that 3rd one, we will announce, if anyone has emailed us or Facebook messages or Instagrammed or whatever, Patreon messages, a picture of their completed bingo sheet. We will do the drawing internationally by the end of episode 3, and I guess we'll announce it in that episode too. So
Yeah, I think it's to give actual dates. It will be from March 23rd till the 3rd of May.
All right, March 23rd to the 3rd of May.
Look, we got there eventually. So back to the bingo and going through them. So we've got for Frodo. You yell out something awesome that it doesn't have to be for Frodo. It can be whatever you think is themed and suits your army as your leader charges. In the next square, we've got "and Brohan shall answer," because we all know Gondor's called for ale, so Brohan's going to answer, and that is to buy an opponent a drink, a beverage of some sort, be it water, be it soda, be it ideally a beer if they're over the legal drinking age wherever you're participating. But Brohan will answer, buy your opponent a beer.
All right, give me your name, Horsemaster, is the one in the next square, which is choose to dismount a hero model.
Yes, ideally for not necessarily a tactical reason.
Yeah, just to check off the square, just dismounted them.
Yeah.
Turn 1. Contest of Champions, dismount and charge. There you go. Yell for Frodo, get it covered in, just get it over with.
Right? You got 2 right there. You got right there. And then we've got it will never truly heal. One model never strikes blow. Shielding is fine, but you pick a model at the start of the game, you're like, this until he dies. So this warrior of Rohan, this warrior of Gondor, Moran and Orc, whatever it is, his wound is never truly going to heal, and you play him for the whole game. Ideally, you don't just sit him on the backfield, and you never strike blows. That does include shooting, so you can't be like, haha, my archer's never technically striking blows. No. It never attacks. It's a pacifist, like Frodo himself.
Only shielding.
Shielding's fine, because obviously if somebody charges you, you have to strike blows. It's not, and you win the fight. It's not optional, so
Yep.
I recommend picking a guy with a shield.
All right, and in the final and 5th square on the top row, we have a wizard should know better. Spend 3 will or more on a spell that needs 3 or less to cast.
Yes,
That's right. Just
yes.
a wizard should know better, but he doesn't, and he's just like really wants that. I mean, command, compel can go off in a 3. Really, we need that 6, maybe. Really want to get that 6.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're just wanting to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of something. So next we have, going down into the second row, we've got, you have a stout heart, and that is you take 3 courage tests with warrior models before you take, after taking a break test, so you take 3 break tests with warrior models before you take a break test with a hero. It's brave. You got it. So maybe, this could work out. You've got some warriors who don't have a stand fast. Buy them off on an objective. You take those courage tests first. Check off. You have a stout heart.
Yeah, this is all for all the elf players out there. Anyone who brings berserkers with high courage.
Yeah. Well, if you want to game it, but if you want to have fun,
you're taking courage. You're taking courage 1 goblin test while they're inside Harbinger Evil from the Witch King and Angmar.
Yeah, that's right. With the Goblin King standing right next to them, so they could use it. But you're saying no. Gondor Calls for Ale is calling for me to have a good time.
No, it doesn't say here, Sam. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't have to pass these courage tests. You just have to take them.
No, I don't. Yes, you just have to take them.
So those goblins, they're like done. They have a stout heart, but they're going to go have a stout heart over there.
Guys, I think there's something back here I need.
All right, moving right along. Second square in the second row. Every game is Fog of War, Sam. Every game is Fog of War. It's the best scenario, so why not play it every time? Before the start of the game, declare a terrain feature you plan to hold at the end of the game. You control it if you have more friendly than enemy models within 3 inches or inside the terrain feature. Then you can mark down that square.
Yeah.
So do you declare that to your opponent, Sam, or you just secretly note it down?
You got to be like, this statue right here, I'm taking this. This is going to be mine at the end of the game. You look into their eyes. You say,
you got to tell them. You got to let them know. There's no secrets. It's declaring Fog of War. There's no fog in this war. It's just
it's okay. But you can't say every game is war.
That's true. That's true. And it's the Fog of War objective. And you could be double bluffing. Okay. You could be like, I'm not actually going to check it off this game, but I'm going to tell you that I'm planning to check it off.
Right. I mean, you could always be trying for it, and maybe they're like, oh, you think that statue's yours? Just you wait, because it's actually mine. Then you have a battle over it, and you have a way more entertaining and hilarious game with an added objective that doesn't mean anything as far as the tournament or competitiveness is. It is just for kicks and giggles.
That's true. One of my favorite games, I still remember this, is when we first started playing Lord of the Rings. We went to our first Rob Loader tournament back in 2018, 2019. And I played a game with a guy, and we had a fight with his Easterling archer versus my Haradrim archer. Were fighting over who could control the second story of Gondor Ruin so that we could shoot spear supports in the rest of the battle line. Completely irrelevant. 2 archers are not going to affect the game at all, but it was the most fun part of that game was fighting each other over this terrain feature.
I have a very similar story, which is kind of what this episode is all about, I think, in those are the kind of ways you can have fun with an opponent, win or lose or no matter what. But before we delve into that next segment, whatever we want to call it, we're going to keep going through this hobby bingo. So
I don't want to get distracted there.
We don't need no stinking rings. And that is, of course, something that I wrote down and don't remember what it is. It's pass all the fate rolls a single character has to make. You can use might to pass them, and it has to be at least 2. So you can't be like, haha, got him, my evil character with only 1 fate has passed it.
So what you're saying, Sam, is that you're never going to get this one.
Correct. Well, I could spend might. It might encourage me to do so. Unless I play a multiple fate model with Horse Lord. I can pass Horse Lord fates.
All right, so in the next square we have Death! Declare 3 or more heroic combats or strikes in a single turn.
Yes. We can all know where this one's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty straightforward. Should be pretty fun, although you got to have at least... Well, no, captains can call combats, so,
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and then we've got, you shall not pass. Declare a heroic challenge. Because Gandalf was very clearly challenging that Balrog.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, he challenged that Balrog. Right, and that was the last one on the second row. So, beginning row 3, we have a hero of legend. Make a choice because it's what the character would do, not because it makes tactical sense. So, if you have Gandalf the Grey and the Balrogs on the table, declare a heroic challenge. Get two squares in one.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, anything. There are just times where it's like, oh, my Aragorn's going to back away from those 2 Uruk-hai because I want another round of shooting. You're like, would Aragorn do that? I don't think so. He would charge.
Right, exactly.
So to encourage the or it could be something simple as an orc not being super tactical and just wanting to brawl with Gondor. It's all about the fun and what would Gondor do, Ben? That's the question. All right, so moving on, we've got one does not simply walk into Mordor. End the game with an infantry model in your enemy's deployment zone. It can never have been mounted or fly, so you have to walk from your deployment zone into their deployment zone.
I like it. That's a fun
I recommend
one.
having a strike force of multiple models to try and do this, because this is another one where you're picking that individual model. You're picking your ring bearer, as it were, and he's getting to Mordor. And Mordor, in this case, is just the other side of the battlefield. It's a lot. Let's be real. It's easier than what Frodo had to do, so it should be decidedly achievable.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you're not actually walking into Mordor, which one does not simply do. You're just walking into your enemy's deployment zone, which is the point of reconnoiter. It's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
All right, so the next square, Sam, the middle square, square 3, row 3, we have a gimme, an easy one. It's advertised for us. Tell the tournament organizer, tell an opponent, tell someone from the convention, like, hey, check this out. Check. You like Lord of the Rings? You don't like Lord of the Rings? We don't care. You like silly beers? You got to go check it out.
Yeah.
Tell them about Gondor Calls.
Check out Gondor Calls for Ale. Bonus points if you encourage somebody in the event you're playing, perhaps the first round, you're like, I want that free middle square, and you're like, hey, I'm doing this cool bingo thing. You see those nerds over there? They've got a whole stack of them. You too can participate in Hobby Bingo. The plan is to have such a buzz around, and I keep calling it Hobby Bingo, it's Tournament Bingo.
Tawny Bingo. You can still get the
Tawny
Y.
Bingo. Yeah, I'm still gonna just.
Yeah, you're still gonna fuck it up and call it Hobby Bingo. Fair enough.
But that is the whole plan, Ben, is to have such a buzz around Tournament Bingo that is what people are excited about, and they're like, oh, look at those nerds trying to win this tournament. Hobby Tournament Bingo.
Oh, I'm going to do both, Sam. I'm going to win the tournament and get a bingo. Just you watch.
Big words. Just you wait. That could be. You could get a square for that claim, as we'll get into later. All right, Ben. Moving on.
All right, I put down my list. Sorry, I got all excited, all distracted. Oh no, you're next. I did.
I am, but I also just talked for a little while, so I was going to give it to you. But that's fine. We've got a Bane of Kings. Have one of your hero models, not your leader, kill 2 or more enemy hero models in a 3-game tournament, or 3 or more in a 5-game tournament. So we sort of opened this one up a little bit, because if you're not participating in Adepticon, let's say, and it's a 5-day tournament, which is a 5-game tournament, if you are only going to a 3-game tournament, that's a little more achievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yes, the Bane of Kings.
All right, and the final one in row 3, we have a rule inspired by Bjorn and... Oh, God, brain fart. What's his name? Theodred. Bjorn and Theodred, we have the Berserker. At the start of the game, secretly note down one of your heroes. This hero must always charge if possible. Have this hero survive the game.
No need to notify an opponent there.
Yeah.
I suppose that makes sense. Otherwise, if you're playing somebody who is not playing in the for fun of Tournament Bingo, they could just kind of ruin your...
Yeah, and so, and a lot of this Tournament Bingo is about how you play, and it's scouts honor sort of thing, right? Like, we're trusting people.
Yeah. Obviously, we're not gonna. We
don't need photo evidence.
And we just assume that if you're trying to have fun and want to have fun, and this is something you think would be fun and cool to do, you're gonna do it. And if you didn't, then whatever, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know. There are some heroes who thematically you feel they should just have this sort of attitude anyway. You're bold, you're exiled, maybe even Aragorn sometimes.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, or you've got a Captain Steve, who's hot-headed and impetuous, and he would obviously be charging everyone.
Yeah, maybe he's a captain, left his helmet behind. A lot of captain profiles don't have helmets where he's pointing. It's like,
Yeah, so that's a good one. I like that one. And also, obviously, you can secretly note down this hero, and you can be playing the game, and you can be like, ooh, nope, need to not charge with him, and you don't get to check the square afterwards. But we're certainly, once you've started, we're not standing there gun to head making you make all these decisions. If I could, perhaps I would. Who knows?
Yeah, gun to head is Middle Earth, Sam. We have axe to
boat ahead.
Yeah, boat ahead. You would die before your stroke fell, Sam.
Exactly. Precisely. All right, so we've got Berserker gone through. On the next square, which is the first square of row 4, we've got there can only be one. If you encounter an army that includes one or more heroes that you also have in your army, you have to slay theirs, i.e., they've got a Boromir, you've got a Boromir, you need to kill their Boromir. I think we're saying that Boromir from the Fellowship and you have Boromir, Captain of the
Absolutely.
White Tower, totally fine. So if it's a named hero, I guess, what are we saying, Ben? This is one you came up with. What about captains? A generic
I
captain?
just thought of that just now, and I'll allow it. If your captain can get into combat with another captain and kill him, I think that's fantastic. Because I don't know that I have ever gotten a captain
Have
of
your
mine
hero
into
slay
combat with
theirs.
another captain.
I missed that important part. Yes, your version of that hero has to kill their version of that hero.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just have some guy kill them. It's
Yeah.
I'm yeah.
Like, I'm cracking you down.
Bring
You're
it, yeah, there can
bizarre,
only be one.
Boromir, and you're going down,
Yeah,
son.
consume all the essence that makes you the better version of me, and but there can only be one.
Yeah, yes. All right, moving on.
I guess we should clarify captains from opposing factions. If I have a Gundabad captain and he kills a Minas Tirith captain, does that count, or is it just like Gundabad captain?
I don't know. You tell me. You've created this bingo square.
Oh,
You've made the square, and you lie in it.
all right. Well, I think we're going to keep it wide. We're going to make it wide open. This one's going to be kind of a gimme. Any captain killing any captain, and just make it a lot easier to achieve.
I like it. I don't necessarily think that makes it a gimme. I still think you have to do some work, and not everyone
Captains
brings
kinda
a
suck.
captain.
Oh, it can kind of suck compared to big heroes. You're like, oh, my 5/4 captain. Oh, sad.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, man. Moving on. It's over to you.
Oh, that's over to me. You read that one, right? Yeah. They have a cave troll. Include one or more monster models that do not have the hero keyword in your army. That's right. Make that choice. Bring those monsters. Bring that cave troll.
Well, awkwardly, Ben is actually wrong. That is a square for sure. But no, I'm wrong. I just skipped a square. Ben is correct. I'm wrong. I take it all back. I apologize.
Yeah.
So yes, this is one about building your army for fun. Bring a monster.
Bring a monster. Yeah.
I just have it wrong on my list. I think I have them reversed. Yeah, I have them reversed on my list. So next one we have a shortcut to mushrooms. When placing objectives for a scenario that requires you to place objectives, place them in places that would have worth. You know, obviously you're fighting over that statue or this particular doorway or whatever it may be. Don't just pick the tactical reason of the second floor of that Gondor ruin because I've got goblin mercenaries that will fit there. That's no fun. Pick something that's going to be fun, where the mushrooms that you've taken a shortcut to are.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Sam. I have some questions about this one. I'm wondering if we ought to edit it. And it is, I myself am sitting on 43. I myself am sitting pretty on 43. Over the course of an event, have one hero model kill 43 models. Seems like a tall order.
Nope.
Sam's fine with it? All right.
I'm in. It's going to be hard. I'll be impressed if you achieve it. Impress me, dear listener or viewer. Impress me.
Fair enough.
We might change it later. Well, these will be fluid things for another tournament. Because that's the part of the beautiful plan. Every event we go to, there will be some sort of tournament bingo, perhaps.
Ooh.
Or at least the big ones. All right. So after that, we have... that still only counts as one, which is have one of your models kill a 3 or more wound model in a single turn.
That's right. But it still only counts as one.
Hero,
so if you're trying to do...
easier for it to be a hero.
What's that?
I said it doesn't have to be a hero, but it's probably easier for it to do it with a hero.
Yep, that's true. It could be I don't know how you get to a 3.
A hunter orc that you've trapped a hero with.
That's true. Good old hunter orc killing some heroes. All right, moving on. We have a wizard is never late. Roll or get a 1 on all of your maelstrom rolls for your entire army, and might maybe spend this.
A wizard is never late is get a 4+ on all.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got that one backwards. A wizard is never late. Get a 4 or better. Might maybe spend of this on all of your maelstrom rolls.
Yeah, and then moving on, the other side of that is, I'm sorry, Frodo, I was delayed, which is get a 1 on all of your maelstrom rolls. You can also spend might on that.
All right, and next we have the foresight of the Eldar. Claim something outrageous will happen before it does. In other words, you're going to fail to wound with all 3 of those strikes, or you're going to roll 3 1s on all of your fate rolls, or
exactly. Or Ben saying, I'm going to complete tournament bingo and win the tournament.
Ooh.
Exactly. Something truly outrageous.
Yeah.
Also like to call this the Jake where he calls his shot. Don't worry, this is a 6.
And then rolls a 6. Yeah. Your Mimikil is going to fail its Stampede test in Stampede.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or your Moomakill is going to fail to wound my single warrior with all 4 of its dice. Fantastic.
All right,
All
take us
right.
on to the next one, Sam.
One thing drove out another.
Oh, no,
The
it's
second
Fly
to
You
last.
Fools. You're reading down your list, not
Fly
across
You
the
Fools.
thing.
There we go. I've again, I have a backwards list. Fly You Fools. An important hero fails a break test and flees the table.
Yep.
Simple.
Pretty cut and dry.
Simple,
We've all had it happen.
feasible.
It sucks, but
Yep.
at least you can check off
But
that
at least
square.
this way you get yes.
And hey,
yes,
if you're feeling
yes,
ambitious,
yes,
spend will on
rail.
this. Spend might on this. Turn that 10 into a 2. Spend 3 will and 3 might. Run off the table.
Can you spend will to reduce your roll? I don't think you can spend might to reduce your roll either. I think it's strictly +1.
Oh, really? You can't decrease a roll with
I
might?
think so. I'm pretty sure that's true. Curious.
Curious. Anyway,
All right.
well, we will move on into the last and final square, which is one thing drove out another. Lose a game because you forgot or ignored an objective until it was too late. Are you playing Breakthrough? Did you have an objective in your backfield? Did you completely ignore it and lose the game because of it? Yeah, that's something that I would do.
I was thinking more of the Command the Battlefield, where you have more models than you anticipated within the 12 inches of worthless ground.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one too.
That tabletop.
I've lost Fog of War because I forgot to go get my terrain feature.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that's it. That is all of the squares for Tournament Bingo. We will be putting this up on our various social medias. I think we'll probably make the file downloadable on our Patreon just for free. So we'll do it as a tier that everyone can see, because I believe that's a setting I can do, along with the list of definitions for each of the squares. So you're not like having to awkwardly scroll back and forth and in this episode try and remember what we said each thing was. And we hope everyone will enjoy participating, and we hope everyone does participate.
Yeah, and anyone who isn't able to make a Adepticon, or who makes a Adepticon and wants to try again online, again, you can submit a picture of your filled out bingo sheet. And we're trusting you to do the sportsmanly thing, do it the right way. And the dates for that again, Sam, you said March 22nd to May the 3rd.
March 23rd, so it's which is the start of the Adepticon.
March 23rd to May the 3rd. There we go.
May the 3rd will be the release date of the third Adepticon episode, because there'll be 1 for doubles and 2 for the grand tournament.
Marvelous.
So after that, so for the following, so that's the 3rd is when you have to have your submission in by, and then the following episode, which will be, I believe, the 17th, if my math is correct, will have the results. We'll announce the winner of online Tournament Bingo.
Fantastic. Good stuff. I'm excited. And, if you feel the need to share stories of how you pulled off these two, I'm all excited to hear how this goes.
Oh, yeah, please.
So
please, absolutely.
Tell us a tale.
Yes, indeed. We want to know. We like to hear, especially when it's silly, goofy things. And moving on into sort of silly, goofy things, not really, we're now going to move into the sort of more... The more larger theme of this episode. We spent quite a long time talking about Hobby Bingo, which is excellent.
Tournament
but we're
bingo,
going to talk
Sam.
about
Tournament bingo.
I told you I'm going to keep messing it up. It's like Quick Beam and Beach Bone. 50-50 as to whether I get that right. This is probably actually lower than 50-50, because I do love me some Hobby Bingo as well. So we're going to move into talking about the scenario. So we played these 2 scenarios, and the first one being the Breaking of the Fellowship, I believe this one is called. And the reasoning behind this was that when Ben and I knew we weren't going to go to the doubles episode, when we weren't going to go to that doubles tournament, we wanted to be able to get an episode out. So we were like, oh, well, we haven't done much of the narrative scenarios. Let's play a couple of these narrative scenarios. We can talk about it. We can try this new video format. This will be great. So we'll talk through this scenario a little bit, and I think it's sort of just going to be a bit of a jumble, because what we sort of ended up realizing is that these 2 scenarios kind of weren't the most fun, actually.
No.
They were like super one-sided. So we have the scenario map pulled up, but for our listeners, not our viewers, Ben, would you like to give us an overview of what the deployment and the forces and special rules for this game are?
All right, so this is a game that's played on a 4x4 board, and we have an interesting deployment here. We've got the Fellowship force, which includes Meriadoc Brandybuck, Peregrine Took, and of course Boromir of Gondor. So Boromir is deployed in the center of the board, and Merry and Pippin are deployed anywhere within 3 inches of him. And then the evil deployment zone is this big L shape. It comes 3 inches down from the north board edge and 3 inches in from the western board edge in a big L where the Uruk-hai are deployed. And it's got an interesting game length. I actually really like this as a random game length. Not that we managed to get it to even go anywhere close to this when we played it. And, maybe we'll have to play it again and see if we can stretch it out by Merry and Pippin calling heroic marches and running across the board. Do they even have march? Anyway, I digress. So the random game length on this one is from the 11th turn onwards. If the roll for priority is ever a draw, then the game ends immediately.
Yeah, and to talk about because you mentioned what the good forces are, the evil forces are an Uruk-hai scout captain with 2-handed weapon, 6 Uruk-hai scouts with shields, 6 with no additional equipment, and 6 with bow. We also have a special rule. Ben, would you like to read the special rule for us?
Find the halflings. Evil models may not target hobbit models with shooting attacks. Additionally, any hobbit model that loses its final wound is not slain, but knocked unconscious and counts as being under the effects of the paralyzed magical power. Uruk-hai models treat hobbit models as like objects, so you can pick up the hobbits and run off with them, which is, of course, the win condition. I don't have the win condition on this page, Sam.
Yeah, so the win condition is I believe it's the Uruk-hai win if you get both hobbits off any board edge. It's a draw if you get one hobbit off. Any other condition is the good win. So if both the hobbits are on the board, good win. One of them's off, it's a draw. Both of them off, evil win. So pretty straightforward. So we've got some. We'll go through this as we talk. I'll just randomly cycle through here. We've got some pictures of our game, and this game ended sort of, as you might predict, ended up being quite one-sided. I think it was more one-sided than it necessarily should have been because Ben rolled fantastically bad, didn't win a single priority.
And so badly.
There was a couple turns where Boromir rolled like a 4 high and had to burn a bunch of might because he was trapped and surrounded by a bunch of Uruk-hai.
Yep.
But so that was essentially what ended up happening in this game, right? I was able to get into the hobbits, won a fight against them with my Uruk-hai captain with 2-handed weapon on like 2s, was wounding hobbits, did a wound to each of the hobbits. Ben failed his fate, didn't want out on like a 2 or something, didn't want to spend 2 of Boromir's might to up it.
Which honestly, like maybe that's what you do if you're trying to drag this game out, because that's what you're trying to do is just drag this game out as the good player. Maybe that's what you're supposed to do is burn Boromir's might on the hobbit's fate. I don't know, Sam.
Yeah, I think perhaps it's more about running away with them and not just kind of nesting in the middle, and I'm not really sure. But
yeah, that's true. I definitely just sat in the middle. But before you got into combat, Sam, I want to talk about this next picture that you've pulled up, which is where you were a little worried for a moment because Meriadoc Brandybuck and Peregrine Took they decided not to move for a turn, and they picked up stones. Instead of running away, they weren't no cowards. They were going to reenact the film. We were playing this for fun. We picked up stones, and we chucked rocks at 2 Uruk-hai who did not have shields. And while I was asking, they both hit. They hit on 3s. Of course, they both hit. And while I was asking Sam, like, strength 1, throw stones. What does that wound a defense 4 Uruk-hai on? Sam goes and looks. And I picked up my Baron of dice, Sam, my heavy, nice, hand-swirled resin dice with no micro bubbles, perfectly balanced for me to roll 2 6s. Yeah, I straight up box card it. I got the sweet pipe smoking dice and the yeaaa Tolkien monogram dice. Got those 2 sweet 6s, and we stoned 2 stupid Uruk-hai scouts before this game even really got going. Very satisfying to have Merry and Pippin each nail a scout. It was great.
Quite worrying, and as Ben said, these are beautiful dice, and if you want yourself a pair or more of these beautiful Baron of Dice, we are of course sponsored by the Baron of Dice, so we have an excellent promo code for you. That promo code is G, C, A, and we have a link to where you can go and buy these dice, and if you use that promo code, you get a discount, and it shows to the Baron of Dice that we are worth continuing to sponsor, so it helps us out, it helps them out, you get yourself some awesome dice. We highly encourage using them. I was disappointed, I must say, that Ben's Baron of Dice rolled as well as they did, but
That's
as
okay.
a sponsor,
For the rest of the game,
too mad.
for the rest of the game, Sam proceeded to outroll me fantastically, which is
That
all
is
that
true.
matters, right, Sam?
That is true. I won in the end, so that's fine. But yeah, so we lost a couple of Urukai going in. We've got some more Urukai charging up, and that was basically it, right? Is that I eventually got enough Urukai in that I could, and I won every single priority. I think you called a couple moves, and I counted one. And did the move go? I think the move might. Even
Yeah,
go
I
to
called
me.
one move, and you counted it and won the move off.
Yeah, so it just ended up being like absolutely brutal, and like if Ben had won more, it probably would have gone on for longer, but. As most of these scenarios are, right? They're supposed to go the way of the movie or
Yeah,
book, whatever they're the story of, which
which
is
is
fun,
fine.
but it does make it a little bit. You're just like this. I think we got to like turn 5 before it was like Boromir. Did Boromir die?
Boromir was killed on turn 6, which left just Merry
Yeah.
running around on his own, and he was like clubbed down on turn.
Yeah.
Sorry, Boromir died on turn 5, and then you clubbed Merry down on turn 6. So
Yeah. Yeah, and we were using our. We should say Jake let us borrow his awesome Urukai army and didn't have a two-handed captain, so we were using the feral Urukai. So if you're looking at these pictures, that's why there's a random feral Urukai running around. So yeah, it was still a reasonably enjoyable game. It was very quick, which I think was the saving grace. Like, had this taken an hour or something, or even 40 minutes to play,
yeah,
it probably would have ended up being a lot less fun because it was just so one-sided.
and I definitely feel like if you're going to try and win or even get the draw as the Fellowship, you need to do what I didn't do, which is at least run away for like 2 turns. Like put the hobbits on the Urukai start in the northwest, put the hobbits on the southeastern corner as far as they can be, and southeastern edge of that circle, and then like. I don't know if they have access to Heroic March. Boromir of the Fellowship has March, maybe?
I don't know either.
Either way, you leg it across the table as long as you can.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, we're gonna get in these ruins here. We made ourselves an Athelian board, an arm and hen board with some Athelian pieces. So it's a little Athelian looking with some ruins around. And I tried to claim the high ground and maybe thought about defending doorways, but lost every priority and. Mostly managed to use the terrain to avoid the Urukai bows.
I mean, and it was interesting, but ended up being quite one-sided. Now this is the final picture we have. We actually played. We moved on into playing the next one, which I think is Boromir's Last Stand or Boromir's Redemption or something, and that is. Essentially, you get Boromir and you get the 3 hunters, and then the Urukai get lurts and an additional 2 of each variety of Urukai. So bows, shields, and non-shield scouts. And the goal is for the Urukai to kill 50% of the good models, and the good models to kill all of the Urukai.
Real quick, Sam. Reporting back from my tome here. Boromir of the Fellowship does in fact have Heroic March.
Excellent, yeah.
So he forgets how to do it when he's captain of the White Tower. He's like, marching? Pff, no, not doing that in the city streets of Osgiliath. No.
No, I think he learned how to march on his long march to Rivendell.
That's true. He was like, oh god, there's something to this Heroic March.
But to move back to this other game, we only like played about 4 or 5 turns, and because it was like. Ben won priority on the first turn, moved up, and I charged. So the deployment's like 9 Lurtz is in the middle, 9 of the Boromir's on one side, the 3 hunters are on the other, and 9 of the Urukai have to go on Boromir's side. The rest of them go within 12 inches of the 3 hunters. So Ben moves the 3 hunters up. I charge in, and then it's just a butchering. Like I think the first 2 turns I lost 12 Urukai. And didn't do any wounds to any of the 3 hunters. I think the turn before I was like, that's it, we're done with this. I managed to put 1 wound on Legolas, which he then saved on his first fate roll. Yeah. So it was just like absolute slaughter, and was so one-sided. And it's the issue with any all-hero army, right? Is that it just kind of can be not fun for your opponent to play against, because if I was excited to put Urukai on the table and then just pick them up, it would have been a fantastic game. But I would at least like some back and forth and a little bit of play to it.
Yeah, and admittedly, you opted to play this in a fun fashion, which was to not put all the bows in front of Boromir and just gun him down, which maybe
Right.
would have been the thing to do, but we didn't really realize how one-sided it was going to be when the 300s hit a cloud of Urukai. And like you said, you could have run the Urukai away, or maybe you didn't say. When we talked about it after the game, like you could have run your cloud of Urukai away from the 300s towards Lurtz while gunning bows into Boromir, and it might have been a bit of a different game. But again, it's probably going to go the way of the 300s because it's definitely just like.
Well,
I had Gimli call heroic combat and kill 4 Urukai on turn 1. Aragorn knocked up another 2, and then over the next turn.
Going the way of the 300s or not, to play the scenario to give the Urukai a chance, you have to play it in a non-fun way, which is you run away from the 300s and you stick Lurtz and all of your bows at Boromir, because in this scenario, Boromir is down to 3 might, 1 will, no fate, obviously, because he has no fate, but he's also importantly only got 1 wound.
Yeah, he's been hurt. He's been trying to defend the hobbits.
Yeah. So you have like minimum 2 turns of shooting with what you have 9 bows, one of which is Lurtz shooting. So you've got some might behind it if you really want to do it. Then you kill Boromir, and then you just try and like separate out the 300s. Then granted, like you could have deployed and played in a potentially more fun way, right? Which would be separate the 300s out so that you can't just. Like, I've got 4 Urukai, because that's what happened turn 1. I got 4 Urukai to trap Aragorn. You hero combated with Gimli, who had 3. You got reasonably lucky. But
I got very lucky.
You killed all those Urukai and then peeled off 2 from Aragorn. So it was just like, okay, well, he's gone. But if Gimli was outside, if you were, like, staggered across that whole board, like you were coming from different areas, which you could make an argument that maybe that should be part of the scenario, that Aragorn has to be on one side because he comes from a different part of Hand.
That could have made it more interesting. I didn't even think about it at the beginning of the game. I was like, I've only got 3 models. We're going to go. It's going to be fun. And I was like, holy shit. I think Boromir killed 2, and then Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn killed 16 in 3 turns. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, it was, and then Boromir gets, because it's his last stand and his redemption, he gets to reroll all dual rolls and all strikes. So he's just an absolute machine, which definitely is like, I should shoot him because I don't want to tangle with him. Yeah. So it just ended up being like not a particularly fun game, and neither of the games were going to be enough content to really have a full episode about, which is why we've sort of changed it up, because it also sparked an interesting conversation, which is I struggle to play this game, certainly against you, or just in a casual pickup game. It's pretty hard just to play for fun and for kicks and grins. Partially, right, but there are a few things about that, right? It's partially because the way we play most of this game is in a tournament. So we build lists that are more competitive than not. And hopefully they have theme and it's not always just super, super competitive. But the collection of models we have is on the more competitive side.
Yeah, for sure. And even in my casual games that I play, I'm often like, okay, this is a list that I'm thinking about taking to a tournament, and I'm not necessarily going, like I've lost at casual games because I opted to not like dismount Azog on the White Barg and move them both off the table for 2 points in Reconnoiter. I went and did fighty things with Azog for fun instead. But like if it had been a tournament game, I could have done that. Anyway, like when I play casual games, it tends to be in preparation for competitive games too. So they can have that same flavor.
Right. So I think for me, because even in the tournaments, most of the time I don't care that much, and I'm a big proponent of like the a Hero of Legend box on our tournament bingo is doing stuff in character of the army or the hero, because that's more fun, and like putting objectives in places that you're like, this would make sense that they were fighting over this. So I tend to play that way more, but it can be kind of hard or disappointing when you end up playing a casual game and you're like, oh, but here, like, to make this as quick as possible, we're going to play 650 points. Here's my 650 point helm list I already have written and I have all the stuff for. And you're like, but this is also a list you took to an event that you wanted to do reasonably well in, because I don't want to go to an event and get rolled. So it's like finding that balance, and then it's with the scenarios as well. It's they're quite often one-sided, and so then I'm there are probably significantly better people than me who wouldn't struggle with it, but that is something that I don't find the most fun of. Like, I would like it to be close, even if it's a losing game. It would be nice if it felt like I had a chance, you know. So that sort of was the impetus to talk about this subject, and about how I certainly struggle with just purely for fun Lord of the Rings, and why I think making the decisions in a game can be such an important thing. And like we were talking, like you were talking about earlier, with the battle for the second floor being the most fun part. at that same tournament, I played an Angmar army and got absolutely wrecked. I was playing the army of Gothmog, but it was also like the most fun game I had in the tournament, because there was this, we were playing on a Khazad-dûm board, and there was a statue of a dwarf hero on a pretty big plinth. It was like maybe a 4-inch by 4-inch like plinth, and the statue in the middle. And I had a handful of orc archers, or like regular orcs, and we were just fighting for this. They were like up on this thing, and my opponent moved some models up, and we were just having this fight over the statue. And I was like, oh man, well, Gothmog's been paralyzed and eaten already. All my other heroes are dead, but like I'm fighting over this statue, and my opponent was like, yeah, let's do that, you know. And like, so he started just throwing models up there, because again, it didn't matter. Like, he'd well won the game, but he wanted to have some amount of fun, and because this was something that I'd expressed to, like, ooh, let's do this thing. And hilariously, he also ended up taking the statue by the end of the game. But like, we got to the end of the game, and he was kind of like, you know, you're like, I can't remember exactly what happened, but there was something where it was essentially, it's like, we know you've lost this game. I think we were playing Assassination, and he got his assassination target with his assassin.
Yeah, Gulliver managed to assassinate the captain. What a shock!
Like, he killed my assassin, and basically there was some point where it's like, well, that's it. Like, that was my one chance. My thing's gone. And he's like, oh yeah, well, this was my assassin. So essentially, we revealed our hand, and it was like he was going to win. There was nothing I could do about it. And he was like, oh, well, do you just want to call it? And I was like, yeah, that's fine, we can call it. He's like, oh, but do you want to like finish those last fights on this like central thing? So we essentially did one turn where we just didn't do anything else, but we fought through these last like 3 combats on top of this statue. And it was awesome, and it was like so much fun. And that's the kind of stuff that I think can make the game really, really fun to play.
Yeah. And, you know, conversely, I think, interesting enough, a double side of that same convention, we played a game where we ended up resigning a little early, because we had already lost a game, and it was clear that we had lost, but our opponents were continuing to like put the boot in, so to speak, like backing up to get another round of shooting when we had already lost both of our key heroes and like a whole bunch of troops. And it was like, can we just roll some dice? And they were like, no, we're going to win 12-0. And we were like, okay, fine, you can have the 12-0.
Yeah. I mean,
we're going to go get a drink downstairs, because we didn't have the opportunity to play the game.
It was the kind of thing where it's like, at that point, because it was whichever the double ones is, where you keep track of kills done by leaders.
And both our leaders were dead or something.
Killed both our leaders, and they already had enough that they were like, had that full 7 or whatever. And was still like, well, let's back up there. It was Corsairs and Mordor, and like, let's back up for one more turn and get another round of shooting in or something. And it was just like, man, we're playing the Cirith Ungol Legendary Legion. We would like some combat, like that would be fun. And it just really absolutely wasn't. And we did. We conceded the game. We were like, handshake, like, thanks, we're actually done with this. And they were sort of flabbergasted, which was the funny thing, and called the TO over of like, how do we want to score this? Because it is a weird thing to do, and I don't know that there is a convention in Lord of the Rings, because it's like, well, is that a 12-0? And like,
yeah, I think this was like maybe our 6th game back into Lord of the Rings. But you know, we were fairly new, if not like our 3rd game, maybe. You know, we were fairly new back into Lord of the Rings, and well, we ended up doing fairly well in the tournament. So we were, maybe batting higher than we should have been, or whatever. I don't know, but we just wound up playing folks who were more interested in playing, hardcore competitively than we were, and it was a bit of a shock. It was just part of why we were just like, whoa, okay, you clearly want this harder than we do.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the interesting thing, and it's the same thing where, like, for an example, that game I played where or tournament I played with Helm and ended up winning. There was one of the games where to do that I had to withdraw with my whole army and just throw throwing spears and wait until a turn in which I lost priority and could re-engage against the Breaking of the Fellowship. And I am fully aware that is not a particularly fun way to play. Yeah. The sort of flip side of that coin in that instance for me is that playing against all hero armies, I don't think I'd killed any of his models. Maybe I'd killed Legolas and like a Hobbit who were like off on their own, but the majority of the army I still hadn't done anything to because they're all higher fight than me and were just like cutting through my army. So it feels slightly, it's like, yeah, I could have continued to charge in, but Helm would have died and then my army. So I would have chosen to lose the game at that point.
Mm-hmm. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing competitively. It's like you were saying against your Angmar opponent. He had won the game and then was like, hey, let's engage in a fun fashion over some stuff that doesn't really matter anymore. Yeah. I'm walking away with the 12-0 or whatever. I don't really care. I'm going to give you the opportunity to have some fun and roll some dice. And it turns out you continue to roll shittily. He continues to outroll you, whatever it is. And you still lost. But at least it was like, you and he engaged in this fashion in which you could still play the game and have fun, even though he had completely ground you into the dirt.
Yeah, and it becomes the celebrating of your opponent's highs and lows, right? In a way of like, if they're really excited about this one orc warrior constantly like beating off this whole like flank, he's holding the one gap, and like if you get into the like celebrating of that guy as well, like if you can both find those fun things that don't matter as much, it just becomes way more enjoyable, I think, and it's sort of a bit of a bonding thing, and you can just sort of just claim these outrageous, outlandish things. And that's why I love having themed armies, because you're like, oh well, this is my quest for this thing, I'm going to be trying to achieve that, and I really think the sort of playing in the character of an army or whatever, I think is...
It's funny you should mention you and I play at the beginning of this discussion. You mentioned you and I playing, because I'm thinking back to a game that you and I played at Adepticon, the first Adepticon we went back to, the lost episode, so to speak, the episode that we recorded but never released, where we played a game, my Bolg army versus your Helm army, and I basically got screwed on Maelstrom, and then whatever, the game was over. But I had a warband that came on and your whole army surrounded it and proceeded to beat it to death. But at some point you left me 3 orcs and were like, okay, Helm and the rest of my army are going to move off. And I got to enjoy my 3 orcs shielding and not dying to the remaining Rohan guys over the course of, I think we were playing Command the Battlefield. So it was about controlling table quarters. Yeah. So you really didn't even need to kill. I guess if you killed them all, you've gotten 1 extra victory point or something. But,
Yeah, I mean, and a similar thing in that game where it's like, at this point, a big chunk of your army had died over there, and you had some few other things in, and rather than being like, okay, well, I'm going to throw Helm and a bunch of dudes into Bolg and try and also kill Bolg, it's like, okay, he's gonna kill some Rohan warriors. I don't matter. I'd rather Ben or any opponent in this situation have some amount of time having fun with their big hero than be like, fantastic, I can twist the knife, kill that hero, and then it's definitely my game. Yeah. Of course you run the risk of losing the game or making it a closer game because of that, but it is a game, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully you want to have fun and you want your opponent to have fun as well.
Yeah. And so maybe if you and I had been player number 1 and player number 2 in the big tournament playing on table 1, we would have played that game differently. But maybe not because it was you and I. But we were on table 34. Who gives a shit?
Oh, let's good versus evil this roll. Whoever wins that, you can take number 1, and then let's play a game that's totally for fun and who cares.
Yeah,
and I think that, and I think that's like part of, but that's part of the thing where it's like you and I playing at home just for whatever. It does become an interesting thing where it's like I think the most fun that I've had playing games where over one Christmas we played a round robin. We each had like 3 or 4 battle companies, and we just played this really dumb battle companies campaign, and we were just doing dumb, ridiculous things that didn't matter. But because when we play an actual game, there's sort of there is always a winner and loser, and I don't love losing, but but it's also like if we play 3 games and the same person, and especially because quite often we're like, I want to test out this list. But if you play 3 games and the same person loses all of them, you're just kind of like, oh, maybe we should do something else. It's just like, it is a bizarre thing. For as much as I love this game, it is a game that like, I think to just have fun in casual games, I need to like pick a list and be like, I want to do the barracks of the White Tower or the White Tree, where it's nothing but Citadel Guard, King of Men, and captains. And the idea is that that's the guy who like leads the Citadel, the Guard of the Citadel, or the Fountain Court. Guard of the Fountain Court is what I actually mean. And do something like that, and then it's just like really fun and doesn't matter, and it's not like, oh well, I've sort of trained myself to play well, and
right.
I'm
going to do the elves that were going west and met Frodo and Sam and in the Shire when they were like, look, Master Frodo, elves, and they're all, I'm just going to run pajama wood elves with it. It's going to be, is it Eristor that he meets in the Shire?
No, it's Gildor and
Gildor. There you go. Right.
Yeah. I mean, but again, that's the other thing, right? Is it's like you look at these armies. It's like I love the idea of doing a Mirkwood Rangers, or as you said, a pajama elf, wood elf army. But you give them throwing daggers or bows, and you're like, well, how much of this game do I spend shooting, and do I spend dancing around and throwing things? And it's like I have a plan to do a mostly Dragon Cult acolyte army, and they all have throwing weapons, and so it's. You're like, how much of this do I leverage my throwing weapons versus do I back up and throw my weapons? It was really interesting. I was watching some of Damien's hobby vlogs about his Riders of Eomer that he went the Throne of Skulls with, and one of the things he was talking about was like, because his whole army, like you do with those kind of things, basically had throwing spears, and they certainly all had bows. And he was like, because Throne of Skulls, a big part of it is sportsmanship, he was talking about how he was like, well, this could be a potentially not fun army to play against, because to be competitive, you back away, you pick up as many models as you can, and then you engage. And he said, so his like internal rule to himself was he would never back up and shoot. So he would move forwards, or he would stay in place and shoot, but he would never like disengage and just shoot. And I was like, that's awesome. That's going to make for your opponent have way more fun.
Yeah. If you need to disengage, just full disengage, no shooting.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
The runaway game too much.
Yeah. I mean, because that's the thing, and it's like obviously I think both you and I have a tendency towards playing big smashy heroes because that's fun, but it is fun to get into combat, and I think that's part of where the game becomes really fun. Both people are rolling dice. You win some, you lose some, but if you're only being shot at, it's more one-sided, and it's the same thing. Yeah. It's funny because it's like talking about at a time, right? Who knows? It probably still is very good, but the Dragon Emperor was the boogeyman of the scene, right? The meta. Everyone was saying the Dragon Emperor was so good, especially after Assault on Lothlorien got nerfed. But I'm like pretty much always happy to see him on the table. Like, yes, he's very good.
Agree.
But I know what this army is going to do. It's going to move forwards and fight me. And if that's what my army is also trying to do, like, awesome.
Win or lose, model coming off the table, it's probably going to be fun.
Right. And like, I think to sort of start wrapping this up, that's why, I mean, Magic is so good, but it can be also really frustrating. Angmar especially, because Paralyze is just not fun.
What, Sam? You don't like Paralyze? This is shocking. Nope. This is shocking to me. I've never heard this opinion
Breaking
from
news. First time we've ever talked about it. But Paralyze isn't fun. But even like getting your, and I love playing Saruman, but getting your big hero Sorceress blasted off a horse because it's kind of inevitable. It's just like, yeah, man, cool. There's nothing I can really do about that. So, you know.
Yeah, that's why
And obviously,
Razgoosh
I'm
is
not
cool,
saying.
man. He's not on a horse.
Yeah.
Caliborn,
Yeah.
no horse.
Yeah, Razgoosh, same thing. And like, obviously, we're not saying go to a tournament and just like don't be competitive. I think that it can also be very fun, but I think you should be competitive, but also consider what your opponent, like how much fun your opponent is having, and if you've 12-0'd a game and you'll just, you know, feed them some models to kill, let them have a good time with whatever the thing they brought is, even if it doesn't matter.
You know, and if someone looks at, you know, they haven't heard of this cool hobby bingo thing, you'd be like, hey, look, man, I know you're losing the game, but you want to have an archer battle
bingo.
where we're
Tournament bingo.
We're gonna shoot each other with our archers. I've actually had a game against Alex at the Gathering Storm. I had an archer battle where we were just trading. No one died. We were just like, my archer was going to shoot his archer for the next 3 turns. You know,
Yeah,
something to do, right? Like, I've lost this game, but we're going to engage you with a silly Lord of the Rings, and it's Lord of the Rings, Sam. Like the little people, the little folk, they have the biggest impact, and they can just really turn the game around. You know.
Yeah, I mean it's the same kind of thing with any game where it's like fun to name your models and talk about how Jimbo is off to complete his quest. And,
Aragorn and Boromir, the archers.
Yeah.
Sword and Bordergorn, the sword and shield Gondor man.
A classic Gondor name.
Stuff.
But yeah, so I think we have talked for quite a long time both about tournament bingo.
You got it.
Tournament bingo. We talked quite a long time about tournament bingo. We talked about these scenarios we played that ended up being a little disappointing, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
and
for sure. A little disappointing.
Our thoughts and feelings about what makes a game fun and just not taking it overly seriously, and chatting and being like friendly with your opponent, right? That's something we didn't talk about, but you know, it is amazing the games where you have people who like don't look at you, don't make eye contact, don't engage with you, and you know, are just like kind of robotic, and you're like, but obviously not everyone.
And some of us struggle with the social situations. We understand that too.
But. Yeah, for sure. But you know, I think it is important to keep in mind what is fun for both people, and also, and I need this reminder as well, right? That like we are grown ass adults playing with little toys.
That's
and
true.
It's a game, and win or lose, like yes, it can be frustrating to lose and a bummer, especially if you were so close, flying so high. But it is at the end of the day, it's a game, and it should be fun.
Absolutely. So, Sam, to wrap up this episode, we'll call that discussion. We'll move on to the next thing. Where, for reals this time, presuming we don't get struck down by a plague, where will you find us next?
All right. Well, Ben, I think for me, the next place, I will pull up my calendar. The next place you will find me is at Adepticon. So on the 22nd of March, we will be. The 22nd of March, we'll be playing in the Adepticon Doubles Tournament. The 23rd and 24th, we will be in the Grand Tournament. Very, very exciting stuff. And then I believe on the 6th, did I put it in another calendar? Sometime in April, I think it's the 6th of April. Yes, the 6th of April, I'll be at Games and Stuff, playing in the Deagle and Schmiegel Good versus Evil tournament. So that will be quite exciting. That is in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And on the 4th and 5th of May, I'll be at the Richmond Open, playing in the 4th will be the Richmond Grand Tournament qualifier thing. So it's you play 3 rounds. If you're in the top 8, on the Sunday you play in another top 8 tournament, and if you don't, you are automatically entered into the second, I think it's the second breakfast tournament is the name of it, which is a different points level, and probably where you will find me on Sunday, and I would be very excited to play in that because it's 500 points, and I love me some low points Lord of the Rings, and that is an event run by Rob Loader, who runs a fantastic
premium
event. Also, moving on. We're keeping this tournament ball rolling. We've got plans here at Gondor Calls for Ale on the 18th and 19th of May. I will be up in the wilds and wilderness of Maine playing in what's the name of that event, Ben?
Defense of the North, Big Trouble in Little Dale.
yes, which is a super fun 350 point event. I believe it's 5 games over 2 days.
I think it's 7 games over 2 days. It's
7 games over. Yeah, makes more sense. And you can't have any hero over 100 points. And there are some other restrictions as well. And that is run by Henry, who of course was on the show and ran a ran an event, the Defense of the North, last year. And I have a grand plans, which some of my models have recently arrived for that. So I'm super excited.
I should say too, Sam, that is at HuzzahCon. So you need a convention pass. The tickets to the event itself are free, which is good because the convention pass is not cheap.
yes. Is that Portland, Maine?
Yes,
right?
in Portland, Maine. Not really the wilds of Maine, Sam, but we'll let you have it. It's wild for you.
Exactly. Anything. I'm a civilized boy. All right, Ben. What about you? Where obviously you'll be at some of those same events, but otherwise, can we find you somewhere different?
Well, coming up this episode, but at the time of recording, coming up next weekend. This episode will already have released by the time I play, but I will be playing at the Mickle Delving Matham Society Winter Classic, which is on March 9th. 600 points, I think. And I'm thinking about bringing old Bolg back and maybe some ogres. Maybe Bolg and the ogres will make a return for that, Sam.
Excellent. Very exciting.
Moving onwards, I'm not 100% sure, but there's a good possibility that I shall be attending one tournament to rule them all, which is up in New England. It is on April 22nd, and it is at Gaming Tech, which is a pretty cool little game store in New England. It is in Massachusetts. Anyway, it's cool because it's got a Helm's Deep board, Sam, like the complete Helm's Deep, the Hornburg, cool. the gates, cool. The whole thing, the big tower. So there's a possibility. I think they actually did a full Helm's Deep battle on it, but I would love to get my gaming crowd together and do Defense of Helm's Deep. I think it'd be super cool to do it on that board. So that is on April 22nd at Game Tech, which is in Massachusetts. And then moving on, of course, I will also be at the Richmond Open, which you said is on the 4th and 5th. How many points is the Richmond Open GT, Sam? Do you know?
I think it's 800.
800.
I think it's 800. Not 100% sure. It's 7 or 8. It's one of those.
Yeah. And then, of course, on May 18th and 19th, I will be at HuzzahCon doing Defense of the North, Big Trouble in Little Dale. But I will also be running my own little event, Sam, on Saturday night between tournament days. We will be doing one round of 3 versus 3 Lord of the Rings. We're calling it Midnight. Well, what did I call it? Midnight Madness, I think is what I decided to call the event. Anyway, it's going to be a good fun time. We're playing 400 points aside, and the objective is to get into the middle of the board, steal tokens. I'm going to have gold chocolate coins to hand out to players, which you can eat for deliciousness. And it's just going to be a great silly fun time with some funny, goofy 3v3 rules, which I never actually got to play with, despite my gaming crowd consistently having 3v3. We came up with our own 3v3 rules, but we're going to give Games Workshop a go for this event. It's going to be good, fun stuff. Is
it 2 teams of 3?
No, it's. I said 3v3, didn't I? I said 3 players. So it's what?
3-player free-for-all.
Yeah, 3-player free-for-all, yeah.
Nice. That makes more sense as 400 points a person as well. I was like, oh my god, that's 1,200 points aside.
No, yeah. So it's three players, every man for himself. Nice. Alliances, bribing your opponent with chocolate coins that you won from the middle of the table, all encouraged and allowed. Betrayal.
Perfect. I'll have to add an extra 50 points to my already scheming army.
Yeah, well, no hero elements. You can bring whatever you want. You can bring the 3 trolls if it tickles your little heart, Sam.
I could. It's always. But didn't you say it was 400 points? So that's the perfect points valley. Get a bonus bonfire. It's
interesting running a 3-player event where the idea is to have 3 players on a table because you need 2 ringers. Because if you have 11 players, I guess you can add 1. But if you have 13 players, I guess you can subtract. Well, anyway, in my head, I did some math. I was like, I probably need 2 ringers to make sure that this breaks down into 3s.
Well, of course, I can be a ringer.
Henry's going to ring for me, Sam. So you are free to play.
Excellent. Free to crush.
Yeah.
Free to crush and make sure nobody has fun. Nobody but me. All right. Well, with that, we, I think, are ready to end our first ever video recording of Gondor Calls for Ale. We'll see what I can do with putting in all our various we're not affiliated and we are affiliated, so that's going to be a mystery.
Interesting. I didn't even think of that.
Maybe there will be just some audio moving on. Maybe there won't be anything.
Yeah, just
who knows?
Full screen of our logo.
I don't know yet. You will find out in mere moments. But until next time, dear listeners and hopefully viewers, we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no microbubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone. These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.